Welcome to bLU Talks.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that introduction. And thank you for having me here at the University of Miami. I want to spend a few minutes together with you on a topic that's near and dear to all of our hearts, even if you don't realize that it is. So just by show of hands to get started here, how many of you sell something? Okay, we have a few hands going up, quite a few, all right. Now, for those of you that put your hand up, as well as everybody else, how many of you ever have to persuade somebody to do something? I see all the hands going up, right? So whether it's persuasion through sales or persuasion as in getting somebody to do something that is beneficial for them, what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes are what are the components of persuasion. And so if you're in sales, this will help you in particular to be able to do the persuasiveness of sales. And if you are not in sales directly, we'll help you with whatever you're doing to persuade. So in sales, because it's persuasion, unfortunately, very often, the salesperson resorts to lowering their price in order to compete, in order to persuade the person to move forward. And while prices may be part of the decision process, that's not the whole thing. In fact, there's three components that we're going to look at today that make up how somebody decides. And to help model that and so that you can visualize it, we're going to turn the stage into a big scale. So basically, if you think of this stage as a scale where if it tips this direction, that's a decision for us or a decision in terms of moving the person in the direction that's mutually beneficial for us and for them. And if the scale tips in this direction, this part is heavier, this part is going to be against us. And it could either be against us or, in other words, not deciding to go with us. It could be a decision for do nothing, or it could be a decision for the competition. So this is the scale we're going to be looking at as we go through here today. Now, very important factor is there are three main components, and they are all perceptions. And because they are perceptions, they can be changed. And that's where the idea of influence comes into play when it comes to sales. The three components are value, cost, and risk. Value, cost, and risk. So using this model of the scale, in order to move a decision in our favor and tip the scale this direction, of course, on this side, we're going to have value, the value that somebody sees from our solution. And in another talk that I gave, we talked about value and the way that value is created by the intersection or overlay of the needs with the solution. And that's where the value comes into play. Now, value can be in a number of different ways for someone. Value could be either trying to alleviate a pain, or the value could be a gain that they're trying to achieve. In either event, this is what can tip the scale in this direction. Now, let me give you a quick example. What if I told all of you that there's a solution that I could offer you that's going to pay you $70,000 a year, and there's no strings attached? How many people and how quickly would you decide to make that decision, right? If it's truly no strings attached, and you're going to get that type of value, that scale is going to tip in the direction of deciding to move that way. Now, unfortunately, in real life, it's not as easy as that because there's other factors that come into play, and namely that's cost and risk. So those obviously belong on this side of the scale. It's cost and risk that's going to counterbalance and even keep somebody from moving forward if they feel like the cost or risk are too high. Let's look at cost first. So cost is typically thought of as the price. And yes, if the price for something is too high and it weighs the scale down this side, and we don't see the value in that decision, we're going to decide not to do it. And this is where what I mentioned at the opening, unfortunately in sales, we tend to want to compete based on price. Oftentimes our client will say, oh, that sounds too expensive. Or many of you may have a solution that is not cheap, it is expensive. And by default, we might think, well, the scale is tipped in this direction against us. There's two ways for us to adjust that. One of the ways is to build more value. So tip the scale by making the value outweigh the cost. The other way to do it is to lower the cost, but we don't want to be doing that in sales because that means it's cutting into our revenue, into our margins, and frankly, probably not good for anybody. Let's look at cost for just a moment, because very often what somebody focuses on is the initial price of a solution or an investment. And for a moment, let's imagine we're the person that's saying to me, your price is too high. Well, if I think about it, that means they think that they have a price that's lower. Now, how many of you have ever thought about or maybe even got a free puppy, right? A free puppy. So free sounds great. It's a low price. It's a zero price. You get a free puppy. But how much have you thought about what the cost of that puppy is over its lifetime? I don't know if anybody's calculated it, but studies show that it's between $8,000 and $15,000 for a puppy that was free. So when somebody else says, oh, your price is too high, well, I would want to ask, well, what do you mean by price? If it's the initial price, maybe my initial price is higher, but what are you getting for it? And maybe that free puppy or the other price that's low doesn't come with the right type of service. It's something that's not going to last or do the job that you need. Whereas my solution might be something that helps protect you for the future. And you're willing to put that cost into it. All of a sudden, that cost doesn't look so bad compared to the value. So instead of thinking of price on this side, or even cost, because cost could be the price, it could be a variety of other things, what I want to look at is think about total cost of ownership. What is the total cost of ownership of the solution that I provide or you provide versus what somebody else would think that the solution that they're considering is costing for the total cost of ownership? So that's how we can get the scale to tip this way. And of course, the biggest thing is to make sure there's enough value that the cost does not seem to be too much, that they're willing to invest that cost. The other factor on this side, unfortunately, is risk. So even if somebody says, yes, your solution is awesome, and even if they think that the investment is proper, and maybe they think even the value is what's worth it, unfortunately on this side, there's also risk. And this risk we define as the risk of moving forward. And again, it's a perception. Just like cost and value are a perception, risk is a perception. Usually it's embodied in things like, well, is this the right decision? Or, is this going to last as long as I need it to last? I know for myself, we've moved across the country many different times, taking a new job offering. And the value seemed to be there, but of course in our mind, there was a lot of risk we had to weigh. Are we making the right decision with our move? Are we going to find the right school, the right doctors? Is the company going to last? Is my job going to be there once we go across the country and move to a new place? So risk is something that can definitely weigh the scale in the wrong direction, where the customer might do nothing or status quo, or they might decide to go somewhere else. The key to this is it's all about discovery. It's about understanding where somebody is and what they're trying to do. Just like we talked about in my other talk, that we want to discover the needs so we can apply our solution, we want to discover in advance what is the risk that they might be perceiving. What are the things that the customer is thinking in terms of not moving forward? And if we could find that out and proactively take that off the table by addressing those needs, now that risk will be lowered, so the scale can go up on this side and the value will outweigh the perception of cost and risk. For me, the companies that I was being hired by, and this goes back a few years, they said, we'll pay for your mortgage. We're going to make sure that you have temporary housing. We're going to be sure that, we're going to take care of certain things for you. We're going to have somebody to show you around in terms of the doctors and all the different services. So what they did there was proactively took the risk off the table and made it very logical for us to try to move forward. And thankfully, those things worked out very nicely. So they did a good job of counteracting the perception of risk. So in conclusion, we shouldn't have to discount. And yes, we are all selling. So even if you're trying to persuade your neighborhood committee to do something or negotiate with somebody for where you want to go to dinner or a movie, think about the cost that they're perceiving in that decision, the risk that they might be perceiving that we could take off the table, and really what's the value you're bringing. Because when those three things are working properly, the decision should be for us instead of against us, and we won't need to discount in order to do the sale. So therefore, they win, we all win, and we have a successful relationship. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate hearing how this goes for you. Thank you.